Fox 16 News at 9. Covering Conway, Malvern, Little Rock, and all of Central Arkansas.
A small Central Arkansas school district is making big security changes in its push to prevent a school shooting. As Fox 16's Susan Alcori explains, the changes are being modeled after what's being done in Clarksville. Susan.
Yeah, Stephanie, Clarksville schools were one of the first to have armed teachers and staff in every building. And starting next month, Heber Springs will have a similar policy. It's part of a long list of new security measures at the school district, and that has some questioning if it's needed in their tight-knit community. There isn't much downtime. Something Greenlee Jewell is still adjusting to on her first job.
Here you go.
But she didn't need to get used to all the customers coming into the Heber Springs shop.
Everyone knows everyone.
That's why the high school junior says her school's new security measures have no place in her small town.
Clear mesh backpacks, that's just like invasion of someone's privacy.
When school starts next month, all middle and high school students have to carry a mesh or clear backpack. It's just one of the district's new security measures and what the superintendent says needs to be a priority.
We don't want to be in a situation where someone thinks that they can have their way at Heber Springs schools, or that they would meet resistance if they were trying to harm our students.
As part of that, armed staff will be at each school. New fences and security cameras are going up, and more locks are being added inside buildings.
Instead of having to go on a lockdown, our buildings are going to be already locked.
Some parents say the changes are unfortunate but not surprising.
I don't mind doing whatever they want to do, you know, for the safety of the kids.
Greenlee still has her doubts.
No, they're not going to have like metal detectors or anything like that, so that you can still bring stuff into school.
Trying to stay busy at work.
I'm a good student. I feel like I'm being punished.
And not stress about the first day.
In terms of more locks inside buildings, all middle and high school students will get electronic key cards so they can get to classes, but it'll ideally keep out anyone who's not supposed to be on campus. Back to you. Well, leaders are coming together this week to discuss safety at Arkansas schools. It's the 14th annual Arkansas School Safety Conference, and it begins Monday morning in North Little Rock. The governor will speak. The conference will include training on best practices in school safety, security intervention and prevention, and emergency preparedness planning. The conference runs through Wednesday. A Northwest Arkansas veteran is concerned after several other patients just like him were possibly misdiagnosed by an impaired doctor. It happened at the Veterans Health Care System of the Ozarks. Peyton Yeager sat down with him so he could share his story.
I'm one of the victims, as I call this, okay?
Steve Isaacson served in the military for 20 years. This includes fighting for our country in Vietnam.
You're such a good boy.
Now he has a new battle to take on. Isaacson received this letter in the mail from the Veterans Hospital in Fayetteville.
And I had to shake my head and read it again. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I was angry, and I'm still angry.
KNWA was there when the VA announced the investigation into all cases seen by the impaired pathologist. Isaacson is one of almost 20,000 patients that may have been misdiagnosed.
He took an oath. So what he's doing is malpractice.
Isaacson is a disabled veteran and has relied on the VA Center for decades.
All that's mine.
He says he never saw any signs that would lead to this type of problem.
You're not diabetic. Your liver's okay. This is okay. That's okay. According to this, maybe they weren't okay.
But he tells me he and other veterans are demanding answers.
It's between a class action suit, or they need to contact every veteran that got this letter and make an offer to them.
The hospital has confirmed 7 people so far have been misdiagnosed and 1 patient may have died. I asked Isaacson, what if the worst happens to him?
If I would die tomorrow, I've got a couple of things I would say. I may be dead, but I'm going to haunt you.
And that was Peyton Yeager reporting. In your Fox 16 bottom line tonight, the VA first found the physician who has not been named yet to be impaired in March of 2016.
Then over a year later, the doctor was found impaired again in October 2017. That's when the VA fired the employee. Since the doctor was at the hospital since 2005, the VA has close to 20,000 cases to go through as a federal investigation continues. The communications director at the VA hospital says the center has no further comment on the issue. The VA expects this investigation to take several months. According to the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, one Arkansan dies by suicide every 16 hours. Pat Hufford lost her niece to suicide 9 years ago. She says the heartache from this kind of loss never really goes away. That's why she volunteers her time for suicide prevention efforts like the Ride to Fight Suicide on Saturday.
And it is becoming not so much of a stigma like it used to be. You know, it used to be you didn't say what had really happened, but I think people are realizing now that we need to talk about it.
The Ride to Fight Suicide is a motorcycle and car ride around Northwest Arkansas. It was put on by the NWA Out of the Darkness Walk. The ride raised more than $3,000 this weekend. And tonight's State of the Nation report, anticipation is in the air as we await word on which judge President Trump will nominate to be the next Supreme Court justice. Mr. Trump is scheduled to make his announcement tomorrow night in a national address. He will be choosing from 4 finalists. Fox News correspondent Garrett Tenney takes a look.
President Trump has said he would likely make his decision on his Supreme Court nominee by the end of today. If he's decided, he's not saying. A person with knowledge of the president's thinking tells the Associated Press that Mr. Trump has not communicated a final choice. We know the White House has prepared rollout packages for 4 candidates: Brett Kavanaugh, Raymond Kethledge, Amy Coney Barrett, and Thomas Hardiman. Most Republican senators say they would be happy with any of the 4, but a number have said they especially like Kethledge and Hardiman because compared to the others, they would likely have an easier time getting confirmed, which is invaluable just a few months ahead of the midterm elections.
I think they'll all be, they're good judges. I think they'd be fine justices of the Supreme Court. I think the president has to think about who is the easiest to get confirmed here, and I expect we'll do that on sort of a normal timetable of a couple of months.
Democrats want to delay the confirmation hearings until after the midterms and may still try to make that happen by dragging the process out. 3 Democrats voted to confirm Neil Gorsuch last year, but this time around the margins are much tighter and party leaders are hoping their side stays united against the president's nominee.
I can't predict how all of my 49 or 48 colleagues in the Senate on the Democratic side will vote. I will tell you, though, simple math tells you if John McCain is absent, it's a 50-49 Senate. 1 Republican senator can decide the fate of any Supreme Court nominee.
President Trump is expected to announce his pick tomorrow night in a primetime television event. In Washington, I'm Garrett Tenney, Fox News.
Later this week, President Trump will be meeting with NATO leaders in Brussels. Items on the agenda range from North Korea's nuclear threat to cybersecurity. While there, President Trump will spend time with leaders from France, Britain, and Germany, as well as Canada and Turkey. Going into those meetings, the administration is focusing on cost sharing.
I've worked for probably with 3 presidents, all of whom have said the same thing. Now, I think for the first time, we are really seeing the Europeans actually start going in the right direction. Every ally is now increasing defense spending. We've had the largest increase in defense spending since the Cold War. And in the year and a half that President Trump has been in office, it has doubled since 2014. So I think he is making an impact.
And the elephant in the room is Russia, in particular Vladimir Putin. President Trump will meet with Putin on the heels of the summit for a private one-on-one. A scary scene on board a United Airlines flight after a hard landing at Washington Dulles International Airport. Take a look at this video that we have from the flight. It's from Amsterdam to Washington on Friday. According to witnesses, ceiling panels began falling on passengers. Flight attendants were unable to help immediately due to safety concerns with the jet during landing. This forced passengers to hold onto pieces of that panel until the aircraft came down and came to a complete stop. Luckily, there were no injuries reported. Scary scene there. Well, coming up ahead, a new app for your smartphone. It might finally be the answer to stopping those annoying robocalls for good.
And it looks like we'll have another round of showers